And we're back. I hope that you're all well hydrated because the next one is going to be epic. I've got the legendary James Burnett, who's our vice president and head of global accounts here at LinkedIn. He's seated and he's ready to get the conversation started. So James, it's all you, my friend.
Thank you, Sahar, and welcome everybody. Great to be here in San Francisco. Barney, thank you for joining us here.
Pleasure.
We're in the LinkedIn building, and we have a long-standing tradition here at LinkedIn, which is tell me something, tell the audience something that they would not know about you by looking at your LinkedIn profile.
Oh, okay.
Now, I've been here 14 years, so I've done this a lot. For example, I've spent a lot of time in San Francisco.
Yeah.
I'm an avid average golfer. I actually got my first hole-in-one at Harding Park, maybe my last.
How many do you have if that's just your first?
It's probably my first and last,
Only,
especially
okay,
because I'm saying that today.
Yeah, okay.
But share with the audience something we might not know about you.
Well, I was thinking about this, and my LinkedIn profile is like so many, is like work related, and so picking something from not work. For those of you who recognize my accent, I'm British, and I'm a very long-suffering 45-year fan of Arsenal Football Club.
Oh, wow.
And for those who know me, I am my mood is directly affected by how well that team perform over the years and week by week. So
are we in a good mood?
We're in a good mood at the moment.
Okay.
We beat Manchester United last week, so that's we're in a good place at the moment. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about work. So, global head of field enablement at AWS.
Yeah.
One of the largest technology firms, arguably, in the world.
Yeah.
What does that entail? Enablement means a lot of things to a lot of different organizations. Yeah. What does a day in the life look like for you?
Yeah, field enablement, we expressly use the expression field enablement because I think we've heard in so many of the conversations today that how we interact with customers isn't really just about salespeople, it's about a whole team of people.
Right.
And that can include multiple types of salespeople, but it includes a whole raft of other people, whether those are technical specialists or sales specialists or pre-sales specialists or solutions architects or professional services people, et cetera. And so we look at our field as a holistic organization. Mm-hmm. And so we try and build our enablement programs around them operating as a team. On behalf of the customer, not as individual. We do individual role things, but we do look at them as a whole. So I run the team that builds a lot of those foundational programs for that whole field. And so that's a big organization and a big company with a lot of products and a lot of services and a lot of different types of customers, and so it can be super complex.
Yeah, super complex. And I've been working with and following AWS for a long time. Yeah. You all are known in the industry for a very unique, distinct culture.
Yes.
Might I say customer obsession?
Yes.
Is the two words that come to mind. So when we think about this topic of deep sales, some of what we've heard today from other panelists, how does this idea of customer obsession, the ethos of AWS, fit into the way that you think about enablement and helping your people be effective?
So I'll pull just back out of that customer obsession to talk about our leadership principles. So actually, you are quite right. Amazon and AWS, as a subsidiary of Amazon, has a very strong culture based on a series of leadership principles, which we publicly put on our website. And we use those leadership principles from the moment we start interacting with a potential employee and before we deal with a potential customer, all the way through to them seeing value in being a long-term customer or a long-term employee. So those leadership principles are really the DNA of the company. We often talk about which is the favorite one or the anchoring one across those leadership principles.
Do you have a favorite?
Well, I think customer obsession is the one that sits across if we ever get a tiebreaker in leadership principles, and sometimes you do, about whether to index in one area or another, the thing that we always come back to is customer obsession. What's the right thing for the customer? And and Amazon is well known for that in all of its businesses, doing the right thing for their customers, whether that's on the retail side or in AWS or in our media businesses or in our technology business or our device businesses, et cetera. So culture is really, really important. Customer obsession is really, really important. And that bleeds straight into how we onboard our field organizations and then enable them over time to we'll talk a little bit about skills and competences later. So very unique culture. It's for those of you who know anything about Amazon, you can sit in meetings and people actually quote the leadership principles in meetings to each other to keep people on task.
And no PowerPoints.
And no PowerPoints. It's all narrative driven. So it's a fascinating place to work and such an innovative place to work as well. I mean, we talked about this yesterday, how innovative Amazon and AWS just continues to be over the many years it's been operating.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's helped through this macro cycle that we've been through. I mean, a lot of the conversations, a lot of the research over the past year have really called out just how hard it is in B2B sales today.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming customer obsession has helped you all navigate the current environment and continue to find success. Is that a fair statement?
It is, yeah. The customer obsession is absolutely at the heart of it. And I think we've listened to the other two talks today, and I heard Dan talking about truly understanding the customer's problem or the customer's opportunity. And if we start there, we have a discipline that we call working backwards, and it lenses right into that world, in terms of working backwards from where the customer is and what it's trying to do. And so in today's economic climate or today's climate, we have seen some customers who need to tighten their belts. And so, we in our customer obsession and working backwards find ways to do that for them, not only with the workloads they have on AWS, but also to how to help them reduce costs for workloads they don't have on the cloud today, and help them release capital and resources to then continue to innovate. So we have seen various dynamics. On the flip side, we've seen customers where the economic environment has created tremendous opportunity.
That's right.
And so there we lean in a different way. And so so I think understanding the customer's problem or opportunity, working backwards from that, and understanding where they are on that journey is just really, really important.
Yeah, and we've also been talking about, we heard Dan earlier talk about the changing landscape. So when you think about the evolution of sales as a function, we kind of went through this era of automation where it was about blasting out as many messages as possible, hoping to get a response, all about scale, to now that not working so much. And there's a growing divide between B2B buyers and sellers, partly because of a lack of thoughtful approach to trying to build relationships. What do you think's happening in the market? What's AWS's view as you think about empowering such a large team?
Yeah, I would say that, firstly, I would say AWS, I don't think has ever subscribed to the blasting out context in the hope that somebody buys. It's too complex a buy and too complex a sale to move stuff to the cloud with that approach anyway.
Right.
However, we have seen many customers who put their easiest stuff on the cloud, put their stuff on the cloud. And now we're starting to see customers who are having to make harder decisions about moving more difficult things to the cloud, which are more complex to do. And so the way we think about how to get our sales organization right for those kinds of conversations is lensed into this kind of a really understanding the buying team of influencers and allies in a customer for those things. And so
we talk about hidden allies.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I think our motion right now is to try to give the right information to our sellers so that they can have the right conversation with the right person at the right time, depending on where they are in that journey.
Right.
And that's a big, we do that using data, of course, and we can perhaps talk about generative AI's role in that.
Yeah.
And but I think that's a big focus of what we're doing. And so, firstly, that's about providing that information to our sellers. But secondly, in my world, that's about how do we give them the skills and the enablement content to learn those things if they don't know them today.
Right.
Yeah. And how to do it.
Right.
Right.
So you mentioned GAI.
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah.
We managed to go an entire 5 minutes.
Yeah. And I brought it up.
Yeah. You work at Amazon, AWS. I'm with LinkedIn, part of the Microsoft family. We have some of the brightest minds at both organizations thinking through this. What's your read on the impact it's having, and how are you thinking about this across the enablement function at AWS?
You and I both work in really unique organizations at this moment in time in history. We are both custodians of, providers of, and users of generative AI. And so AWS has that, has a very particular approach to how it wants to democratize secure and trustful generative AI for their customers. And so we often think about things about how we use things in the cloud, on the cloud, and through the cloud. And so, this is not today about the products and services that we have, AWS, that are going to help customers build generative AI applications.
Right.
But we have those, and we're building those, and we're building services that are going to help our customers build generative AI applications. My role is really about how do we leverage that generative AI capability inside of our sales organization on behalf of our customers. And so, we have lots of use cases, like so many, where we could apply it. And we, like so many, are kind of trying to figure out which ones are the safest and best to go for now versus the ones that we need to build more muscle around over time.
Yeah, and what's your take on companies that are claiming that they've got it figured out? Or, I mean, it's kind of fascinating. I'm in meetings with revenue leaders and go-to-market leaders all day, every day, and everybody's being pitched some form of GAI from a vendor. Is it working yet, or?
I think, and I spend a lot of time working with our account teams and customer-facing organizations, and with customers too. I think broadly what I'm seeing, especially in the enterprise, is a cautionary approach. And so most executives recognize that generative AI is going to transform their business in some way. And what they're trying to figure out is how and what things is it going to transform. But then more importantly, they're trying to, and they want help mostly of how to do that, in which order to do things. And so we spend a lot of our conversations with our customers talking about how to get their data right to leverage generative AI in the first place. Is your data in the right place? Is it accessible? Is it secure? And how would you use it for whatever generative AI use case you're planning to use it for? So I think it's transformative, no doubt. It is now, no doubt. We already have generative AI in play internally, and Amazon's been doing it for 25 years using AI. So
we had this conversation last night.
It's not new, but it's like the generative part of it is new.
That's right.
I would say, and I heard a really great talk earlier on over in Dreamforce from a customer that said, we're using this term artificial intelligence, but in the role of selling and our relationships, nothing about that relationship should be artificial.
That's right.
It should be genuine, and it's a people, and they talked about it earlier, it's people to people. So actually the way we're thinking about it is, how do we use generative AI to help our account teams become more effective and more productive, double down on the skills that we want them to have, those interpersonal skills and those relationship building skills.
And I think that's also part of the ethos of our deep sales philosophy, our deep sales platform, the work we do with Navigator, which is leveraging in many ways AI capabilities that LinkedIn has always had on top of a very powerful, unique data set to help people build more meaningful relationships, trusted relationships, by surfacing hidden allies, past customers, warm paths into organizations. How have you, we've been partners for a long time, AWS, how have you thought about the application of Sales Navigator and deep sales across your organization?
I think I would talk about three things. There's the data that you have that we can use, the insights that your platform can give us that we can leverage in our planning and in our customer interactions, and then how we use that data and those insights to inform our account teams on things like the next best action to take on a particular scenario, whether that's identifying a different member of the buying team, or whether it's about solving a technical objection in some way, whether it's about introducing a sales program to a customer because they need to leverage credits or training or a partner in some way. All of those things, we can use generative AI and data from LinkedIn to help inform those next best actions for our account teams. And so we, as you know, we're a pretty big user of LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and we use it for all the things that it's obvious to use it for.
Yeah.
You know, identifying people and making that first relationship. But I think there's more to come. So there's, you know, around that data insights and how it drives that real next best action for our sales organization.
That's right. And I think you have a unique perspective through field enablement, because you're looking across a massive organization, and you're actually seeing across the complex segmentation, all of the different ways you think about the go-to-market for AWS. How are top performers embracing these types of technologies, whether it's deep sales and Navigator or other tools in your stack?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that top performers are doing versus others? How do you think about that at AWS?
So I think the relationship between the data and insights that LinkedIn can provide and the things that we think about our sales teams, the skills that they should demonstrate and the behaviors that we want them to demonstrate with customers are very tightly linked. And so we have a pretty strong competency and skill model inside of AWS around various competencies we want our best performers to have. Do they have industry acumen? Do they have business acumen? Do they have executive engagement skills? Do they have standard selling skills? And then do they demonstrate Amazon culture? So the working backwards, customer obsession, all of those. And we build programs around all of those. And I think one of the things that LinkedIn can help us with is providing insights to inform those, building those competencies and skills in our field organization. I was just talking with Dan earlier on, and I was talking about the best performing salespeople have what I call situational fluency. So they are able to have the right conversation based on the right topic with the right person at the right time. So if I'm talking to you, I don't want to talk to you about, you know, some competitor's product. I want to talk to you about what LinkedIn are doing and how they're going to help. You know, we try and build that situational fluency in the account teams, in the domains and the customers that they're supporting. So whether that's giving them more industry domain knowledge or
situational fluency.
Situational fluency, that's right. The other thing that we obsess over in AWS, and I think we didn't really talk about it much today, or didn't hear people talk about it today, which was there is a passion in salespeople particularly to get the deal done. The moment where you get the deal done and you get your paycheck and your compensation, that's a fundamental moment that makes people want to go into that profession. I have a philosophy, and I had an old mentor from IBM who had a phrase. He said, "You've got to get it done." So you know, because that's how you get paid, and that's how we grow our revenue, and that's how we build our customer base, and all of that kind of stuff. But you got to do it right. And doing it right, to me, is how you earn trust with a customer. And maintain that long-term relationship over a long period of time. And so we place a great emphasis on doing it right, as opposed to getting it done. We think if you do it right, you will get it done.
Long-term customer value. I think we subscribe to that as well at LinkedIn. Jeff Weiner, our former CEO, used to talk about trust as consistency over time. That's the only way to build trust. And customer value, it's really, when times are tough, it's easy for sellers to try to find a way to get.
I think we heard that as a through line today, and everybody, customer value is up. You know, like getting a sale done means nothing if the customer gets no value out of the thing that you sold them. And so, you know, too often we've seen, and you've been in many sales roles, and so have I, where you can sell something to somebody and they don't use it. And then you know the renewal's dead, and then selling them anything new is dead as well. And so you know, we have this philosophy of working backwards because we believe that will ultimately drive customer value.
And now you hire for this
at
AWS, right? Because how much of that do you think you can teach versus hire?
So we talked about this at dinner last night. It's interesting. The leadership principles start before you get hired. So if you apply for a job at Amazon, the first thing our HR teams will do is send you the leadership principles and say, hey, we're going to interview you, but you better read these and understand these because this is what makes us tick, right? So and then you know we have lots of behavioral questions that we use in interviews, and so building that culture is fundamental to Amazon and AWS. And so customer value and customer obsession, like number one.
Yeah, that makes sense. So deep sales, it's hard, large, complex organizations, scale. What are your tips for folks that are trying to figure out where to start and how to do this at scale? I think that's the biggest opportunity, right?
Yeah, so as you can imagine, AWS has a pretty broad and complex field organization because we span so many customer segments, so many industries, so many geographies, all over the world, cultures as well.
Right.
And so we have a set of sales productivity tools that we choose to use, and we have a leadership principle called Invent and Simplify. So we kind of like look at that portfolio of tools.
A lot of people are trying to simplify.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people are trying to simplify. So we have a leadership principle that says, okay, which tool are we using for the best thing? And when we get started with a new technology, we always work the same way in Amazon. So first of all, you'll write a document about why you should use that technology in the first place, called PRFAQ. And you can Google it, and it's got a press release frequently asked questions, which is, what would the situation look like if we successfully adopted this technology?
What's the headline on the Wall Street Journal?
Exactly, if we adopted this technology that we would like to talk about. And then we usually start with a pilot or an experiment of some description to prove that the outcome of the PRFAQ is as we expected. And so we create very, very clear outcomes, very clear objectives. We run a pilot or a test. We measure the results of that against the outcome that we designed, and then we iterate on it and we review. And that's
So
how
very data
very data driven, very data driven. Yeah, we don't buy stuff on as a punt, and we don't or a hunch. Or, that's how the PRFAQ may start. But then how we adopt is very data driven, very programmatic, but we move fast, right? So there's like speed matters.
Yeah.
So we do these things.
And we were
very
talking
quickly.
last night about failing big as well as also part of the cultural ethos.
We have two philosophies: failing big and failing fast.
Right.
So it's okay to fail. Everything fails, everything breaks all of the time.
Right.
And so that's Werner Vogel says that from AWS. So like everything breaks all of the time. So you just have to plan for it failing in some way. And you've got to think big enough. One of our leadership principles, like what would this look like if we did it at a really big scale? And then, but if it doesn't work, make the decision to stop doing that really, really quickly and shut it down. So so we've done that. We've done that with LinkedIn Sales Navigator. We took in some early steps. We did some investigations. As you know, we've written some very a data-driven econometric analysis around.
I've been on the receiving end of
exactly
that,
around the performance of some of our sellers who use it versus the ones who don't, and directionally that looks really good. So we've rolled it out to a bigger audience over the last 6 months, as you know. And so all of those things are like how we approach adoption of any tool. We also have this concept of mechanisms, which is to solve the real problem, which is making our selling team more effective or more productive. What's the mechanism that does that? And so you'll have inputs to that, you'll have tools that automate it, and you'll have outputs from it. And so we look at the whole sales productivity, sales effectiveness model a bit like an overall machine, a mechanism. And we kind of like are always tinkering with any part of that mechanism to improve the output.
And have sellers at AWS embraced?
They have, yeah, they do like it. I think the biggest, strongest use case is that identification of people in the buying, and influencing circle. And so, but we know there are other use cases they're asking us for as well, and so we'll approach those over time in exactly the same way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So maybe one last question.
Okay.
What is the one, as a global field enablement leader for one of the largest organizations in the world, what is maybe the one tip on, how, you talked about data-driven approach, but what is maybe the one tip on how to get started with this idea of deep sales, going all in, anything you want to leave the audience with?
I think you've got to have a clear plan about, so we start with kind of go-to-market sales plans and making sure we understand exactly who the right personas are for the sales play at hand.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all.
It's not a one-size-fits-all. And then as well as educating our field on the sales play, we educate them on the tools they can use to execute that sales play as well. And LinkedIn's in that portfolio. So education is as important as the discipline itself.
Right. Yeah, wonderful.
Cool.
Well, Barney, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, appreciate all the insight. And thank you everybody for tuning in.